Welcome to our final program of the fall quarter. It seems, well, just offhand, Mr. Bono is somehow delayed. I guess he lost his way, but he should be arriving shortly within the next 5 or 10 minutes, we hope. In the meanwhile, we have, well, he was originally scheduled to appear with 3 other members of the cast. 2 of them have shown, and that is Mr. William Davane on my far left, who plays the role of Hotspur, and Ms. V. Phipps Wilson, who's in the role of Mistress Quickly, I'm sorry. And they will discuss their roles here. They will discuss their individual roles, the parts they have in the play, and the play as a whole. And I guess first we'll have some brief introductory remarks from both of them as to the role they play. And then we'll just have some questions and answers from the audience as a whole. So if would like to start.
Billy would. I knew he would.
And Mr. Davane will start.
Actually, we're at a loss because Victor has all the jokes, and somehow he's gotten lost. And Frankie and I just kind of fill in when he runs out of breath, which is often. I don't know if you all have seen the play. I play Hotspur, which is a rather honorable character. And it's very difficult to discuss what you do, but it's very easy, I think, to answer questions. If you would all like to ask some questions, maybe we could get it going a little bit that way. Unless Frankie has something to say.
Absolutely nothing. Take it, Billy.
Jesus.
Well, I'm in the tavern scenes that were put in, the comedy relief.
Which means that I'm one of the few people who are straight doing the play. So I should be able to answer questions. Do you want to ask a question? Right, he wants, I don't know if you all can hear him. He said, yeah, there's a microphone, that's true.
I wondered how much freedom he was given by the producer to interpret the role the way he sees it.
As much usually as you want, otherwise you don't accept the assignment, You usually kind of discuss it up front, how you would like to, or I do anyway, how I would like to attack it. And if he's open to that, then I decide I want to do it. And then usually you're left alone. Or, they help you in whatever, along the lines that you've decided to go, which mine are very cool.
Yeah, Billy had a lot of freedom. I didn't. They had very definite ideas in mind how they wanted Mistress Quickly played. And I play it the way they want me to. But it's been great because within doing it their way, I sort of have given the character over to Falstaff. She's a very loving character, the way I play Mistress Quickly, which is the way they wanted it, and it's been great fun. I mean, they're to just give in entirely to another actor, and play with him. It's been just marvelous.
How tell us how you see Hotspur and how you're playing him. I mean, what kind of person is he, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, we originally tried to attack the play as a political play, and it was really supposed to. I mean, what was really supposed to surface in the play was like very heavy political colors, right? Which don't really come through too much right now. But I tried to play him more or less like an ambitious politician, in a sense, a guy who kind of rails at Henry's ability to smile and be very political, because he doesn't really have that kind of equipment himself, although he tries in certain places in the play to be political, to try to be charming and smiling, but it never quite works out for him, and he always ends up getting really like crazy. But and I mean a person with a real heavy conscience too, I think. A person who's very concerned about going to a war with these guys. and a guy who likes his wife. You know, I guess in a lot of productions, even in the Variorum, one of the major choices is to really dismiss her in a sense that it's a political marriage, or, you know, she just happens to be there, and that you really kind of don't deal with her at all. And one of the things I tried to do up front, intellectually, was to, every time I had a choice in the play, to try to work the woman into my life. I tried to do that, which I do with a scarf through the play, which no one gets. Yeah.
In other words, you don't see Hotspur as being a type of an unintellectual type person that, like his name would imply, you know, kind of a hot guy who would spur his horse, you know, like real crazy, passionate guy. We're playing more as an intellectual. Is that it?
I don't use that word a lot.
No, you use it sometimes when you kept on saying intellectually this and intellectually.
Well, I mean, intellectually there's two ways of like approaching, when I approach something, when I decide to play a role. I approach it from here, or I approach it from here. In Shakespeare, basically, it's very difficult to approach emotionally. You've got to approach it cerebrally because it's so complicated verbally. And there's so many colors in there that if you just approach it emotionally, you miss a lot of it. So by intellectually, what I meant was that I start with some ideas, as opposed to if I was doing a contemporary play, I would try to start as open and as with no ideas as possible and try to find things through myself. But with Shakespeare, I try to do it, intellectually. So I pick out the things with the woman and try to make them work through the play. The reason I don't play him like a guy who jumps on a horse, because it seems to me to be one strong color, which I don't think is very interesting, one. And that most of those guys are bright anyway, although you don't see it that much. But I mean, there are a lot of bright soldiers. Or Eisenhower, or whoever you want to use. I mean, generals, guys in the army, are very political guys, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be generals. They're not just guys who charge around. And this guy, literally, at his age, which is being very young, does what Henry does in the other camp. I mean, I'm actually the leader of the whole rebel camp. I mean, I carry the ball, so to speak, with a certain amount of advisors. But the guy is obviously a very bright guy. He has all those kind of older men following him around. So I do think he's a very bright guy and, with a lot of smarts. Yeah.
Where Hotspur has kind of lapses, where he lapses into well, he's forgetful. He forgets things like maps and stuff like that. How do you play that? I mean, how does that fit in with your idea of the character? It doesn't seem to me.
Well, we don't forget the map. I mean, that's just putting down Glendower, who's standing there with a map as big as the wall on his arm. And it's not like I forgot the map. It's like that's his house. I tell him to sit down. I mean, I'm just kind of giving him a bad time. The image would be, I don't know, I grew up in an Irish neighborhood and Italians moved in, man, and so they got into that whole thing about Italians. Well, it's kind of, he's Welsh and I'm English, and it's supposed to be some kind of tension there. But you don't forget a map. I mean, I hope it comes across that I really forgot the map, huh?
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh.
Read it.
Yeah, they don't play it that way at all, like he says.
Yes.
Right. In the battle scenes, you must have rehearsed those very carefully because it really gets a little bit violent there. Have you ever been hurt, or if, like when Hal finally stabs you, that looks like, the motion is so exaggerated that it looks like you really could get hurt if you weren't really careful. Have you ever been hurt or had problems in rehearsal with that?
Not really. He got me one night slightly on the side. About 37 stitches. But, no, you get it worked out pretty much like very similar to a tap dance or, something like that moves along or, and there's just two of you usually, so it doesn't get too complicated. You can talk to each other actually because the audience doesn't really know what you're saying. You know, like I tell him a lot to be cool, take it easy, right? And he says, watch my profile. Says I have a future in this business. And but basically, it's not difficult. The roles get a little hard sometimes when you get out of sync. The sword fighting itself is easy. It's when you get into rolling over and things like that, if you get out of sync because you have such a small space to work in, sometimes they get complicated. But it comes pretty naturally after you do it just a few times.
The usual interpretation we hear of Hotspur and Falstaff are as foils to Hal. Do you think that your kind of intellectual approach lends itself to this interpretation?
Foils to Hal?
Yeah, in terms of excess of vices and virtue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that basic one line, I don't even know where the hell the question came from. Oh, I think that the basic line that people talk about, Hotspur and that, you know, very virtuous, honorable guy, I mean, all that comes through in the interpretation. It's just that there's colors added to it, and maybe some of it played down a little, but I think it adds to it. Although I feel that it's not Hal and Hotspur that complement Falstaff as much as it's Hotspur and Hal, like, what am I saying? Compliment Falstaff. I mean, Falstaff and I don't compliment Hal as much as Hal and I compliment Falstaff. Next question, I'm confused. Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, it's a play about Falstaff?
Sure.
No.
Go see I don't care how many productions
seen
you'll
it?
see, it's about
How many have seen
Falstaff.
it? What do you think?
Shakespeare interpreted it. Don't think without the mic. This was my question. I saw the play, and then I read the critical analysis of it in the Times, which wasn't too kind to much of anybody but Falstaff. And my question is, and I guess he part answered it, I'd like both of you to answer it, is, you know, who is the main character of the play? Now, the play, the way I interpret it, you know, reading it and seeing it, certainly is that it is a political play about the conflict in the king's mind, and also the conflict between the king and his son Hal, who's going to eventually take over. And it's very significant that Falstaff realizes that eventually Hal is going to get rid of him, is not going to have fun with him anymore because he's going to become king. And I think that's the main part of the play is the relationship between Hal and his father, and also of his father in a political predicament because he, after all, he did kill Richard II. And he has to live that down. I'd like both your opinions on that compared to the analogy that it's Falstaff's play, that it's a show for Falstaff to show off his wit and wisdom.
See, my feeling is that's right. That's what the play is about. The play is a very political play, and it's about a father-son relationship. It's about all of those things. But there's not an actor alive who can get out there and carry off those things with Falstaff, because Falstaff is one of the greatest characters in drama. I mean, it's a great role. Just knocks the audience out. So it's very hard for those other colors to surface. That's why I say it's a play about Falstaff. I've never seen the play where it hasn't been about Falstaff. Once in a while, when there's a really weak Falstaff, people get interested in Hotspur's energy.
Oh.
But basically, they don't get interested in anything else but Falstaff.
Oh, I disagree with him. I think that the audience is very interested in Hotspur and Hal. I think it's those three characters have they're equally strong. You don't feel that, Billy?
Oh yeah, fine. I'm just saying that the play is basically, you come out, it's about Falstaff.
But Falstaff was just written in to make the play work. I mean, put it in between all those serious
Let me put it this
things.
way: if I ever do the play again, I'll play Falstaff.
What are your theatrical backgrounds?
I'm a beginner. Frankie's obviously been around a long time. No, I have to do that when I go to get a job, so it's very difficult to sit down and talk about background, you know.
Yeah.
You just keep working.
In the final scene where you're battling it out with Hal, you take your weapon and you stick it in the pole on stage. And I was wondering, is that because that Hotspur feels he can beat Hal with his bare hands, or what's the point for that?
Yeah, it's rather a reckless thing, yeah. It's, there's a certain amount of recklessness in Hotspur, you know, which in some of the internal playing of the scenes I don't play very strongly. I mean, and so I try to use that as one spot where I kind of culminates in a kind of very reckless thing to do, is to really take them on with no weapon at all. Yeah. No.
You said no. He was willing last night.
Who won?
Besides seeing Hotspur as a character of excess energy, who kind of blows himself out there at the end, but do you also see him kind of as of a kind of a figure of antiquity who represents the elegance and who's kind of pushed out of the way by Falstaff and by Howell, who's caught between the high court and the tavern type scenes? Do you see him as this kind of character that's outdated and pushed out of the way?
Oh, no. No. I mean, I would think of him as exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah. As coming in there. I mean, Hal would be. See, Hotspur has never been there before. He's really making a push for it. That whole kind of North Country people are trying to, make a political move, trying to take over the government, so to speak. So that I really don't see him as any kind of really lord time. He's more of a farmer. Hal would be more of that.
But he's caught more between. I mean, Hal is caught more between. He's got this conflict, between the tavern and the high court. His father, and it seemed to me that you represented a figure, more of elegance, of energy, excess energy.
Well, elegance seems to be the word that doesn't quite work with me, anyway. But
well, the code of honor. You were going.
Yeah, I don't see how that relates to elegance.
Well,
maybe
the code of
just
chivalry. That's an elegant, antique kind of code.
Right.
Maybe it's the wrong word.
Yeah. Ask me again.
You want me to repeat it?
Yeah, I've already forgotten, in a sense, trying to figure out what I was.
I was saying that do you interpret Hotspur as well as being kind of excess energy type figure, also as an antique sort of figure? But you said no. Who's pushed out of the way?
Yeah, well, I don't find honor antique. Let me put it that way. That I interpret it as being an absolutely kind of honorable guy, right? And that Mortimer is really the king, or should be the king, and that Henry is, just killed Richard II and taken over. And that
you're trying to uphold, when I say antiquity, I mean you're trying to uphold, what and carry out the role that was taken away from Mortimer and everything.
No, but I'm doing it for Mortimer. He's going to be king. See, I mean, like if our side was to win, Mortimer would become the king, who is the rightful heir to the throne anyway. And I don't know. I guess I don't know what antiquity means, because I'm getting a little confused. I mean. The idea is that no one should take away anybody else's rightful place, to the throne, right? It's God-given, it's sovereign, right? And that Henry has done this, and that he shouldn't have done it.
And Hal's going to uphold this.
Well, yeah, Hal hopefully will. I mean, that's the big thing, right? But the point is that Henry should give it up now and give us back. See, there's other things like, in the beginning of the play, Mortimer is trapped in Wales, so to speak, and the king is supposed to ransom him. I mean, he's supposed to put up the dough to ransom him. He's not supposed to take my prisoners and things like that. So that he breaks a lot of rules, the king. You know, that I don't know whether it comes through in the...
Yeah, that answers what I meant, that Howell is the rule breaker and changing the whole idea of a divine king.
Well, Henry does that, not Hal.
Right, but he's part of that, and you're the other side, and that's what I meant.
Right.
So you answered it.
Look.
After December 8th or December 10th, when you close, is the play going to go anywhere else, or you just going to fold up?
No, it'll just close up. Actually, we were going to extend a week, but Victor has a lecture tour that he does around colleges, which he was supposed to warm up here today. But he's going to be doing like a 10 or 12 week tour, so we're just going to fold it up.
This is a play that's so much about one character, and in this production, that character is so powerful that I'm wondering how you, as individuals, manage to keep your sense of vitality and interest and attempts to produce color in your characters alive.
I can't quite hear you.
Okay. This play is written so much about one character, Falstaff, and the character in this production is so powerful that I'm wondering how you, as actors, manage to keep your interest in your characters alive. As you've said, people don't notice when you do things like carry a handkerchief around. They're too busy watching the main act. They don't look at the sides.
Yeah, watching the center ring.
Right. So where does that leave you? How do you manage to cope with that?
Well,
well, I play with him.
Yes, you're on stage with him all the time.
And it's marvelous to play with him. He's one of the most creative actors I've ever seen. And we just go on stage every night, and we have an experience. It's never been the same way twice. It's always exciting. And I just, it's a very joyful feeling to be on the stage and work with somebody like Victor playing Falstaff. It's an incredible experience, I can't tell you. And I really had trouble with the role at the beginning because I'm a newly liberated woman with a lot of feelings that way, and to turn myself into one of those women from that period, to be totally giving and loving to a man and give all. And I had trouble, but once I began to be able to do it, it was so much more rewarding for me because Victor gives so much. So anything I give him, I get back. And it's just a trip to do it.
I was wondering who understudies on Falstaff and how often he's been working at it.
Ben Hammer understudies. The guy that plays Worcester. Did you see it?
No.
And he will get to do it the last performance. We do. Victor's leaving on the 9th and we played at the 10th.
He works on it about 4 hours a week with the company. All the rest of the time he has to work by himself.
Yes, and he never gets to work. He never gets to work with. He works with the understudies, so he's never worked with me, for instance. He's just worked with understudies, and it's really, our understudy situation is so strange that everybody sort of moves up a step. If they have to replace, like, for instance, if Billy didn't show tonight, his understudy would take over, and then that person's understudy. Everybody moves up one step. So if one person's out, it would change the whole play. You want to play Mistress quickly?
Those last two performances could be classic. Incredible.
Yes.
The king's servant becomes my servant. He just changes his hat from scene to scene. It's like Ed Sullivan.
We have one actress understudying all the women, too. There was a time when Lady Percy was sick, and I threw my back out. It was one understudy, so I had to do it on a cane. It was very interesting. Gave a lot of class to her.
I'd like to know how you would have preferred to play Mistress Quickly.
I beg your pardon?
I'd like to know how you would have preferred to play Mistress Quickly.
Oh, I can't say now because when I first auditioned for it, I had ideas in mind. As I worked with Victor, I realized that they wouldn't work because he's so sweet, and now the way I'm playing it, I like it so much that I enjoy the way we play together. That I can't think. I'm looking forward to playing it with Ben Hammer because it means that I'll have to find a totally different character. Because the one I have with Victor would never work with Ben. But I really enjoy what I do now. And what will come out in the next week, I don't know. I really have to find something new.
You mentioned that playing with Falstaff is a very creative experience, each performance being a little bit different. Does that mean that...
Found you.
Does that mean Falstaff is doing his antics sort of ad lib every performance, or what did you mean exactly by that?
No, there's a structure, but he's so creative that just his delivery on lines is different. His readings are different, and so my responses are different, and sometimes I get very angry with him, and sometimes it's impossible to get angry with him. I get angry with him, I'm laughing at it in the next minute. It's a very creative
But the
thing.
performance
I really
is
love it.
consistent each time?
They're always good. They really are. Victor hasn't missed. He really is the scene. If he ever misses, there isn't any way that any of the rest of the people in the tavern scene can pick it up. Because he's such a strong character, Falstaff, and
How do you feel about the reviews the play has been given, or do you pay any attention to them at all?
They're basically dumb. Most of them. And a guy like Sullivan is really a waste of time. He's really a dumb guy. He keeps saying that I play it like Bobby Kennedy. I play it like Muhammad Ali. That's my image, right? And he wrote an article before the play opened telling everybody what it should be like, which is rather stupid. And then it's an interesting thing that happens with guys like that. A lot of people obviously read that stuff, and we all do privately and admit not to, I don't read that garbage. I wait up for the paper to come out.
I thought it was just me.
But what happens is, like at the beginning of the second scene when Victor comes on, a lot of people applaud. And they applaud Victor because they've read about him in the newspaper. The same people who have read about him don't like Michael Basleone as the king because of what Dan Sullivan has said. Makes it like 10 times harder for Michael to play the play because the audience is hostile toward him because of what's been written about him, which is stupid. It serves no purpose. And just because he can't figure out what Michael's doing doesn't mean that it's lousy, As my controversial, interpretation of Hotspur amounts to the fact that it's flat and sounds like Bobby Kennedy. What is that? Why write that? He's stupid. All he says about Victor is that he's jolly. Basically, 10 paragraphs later, he's a funny guy, right? He doesn't really tell you anything. Yeah, basically, I don't like them, and they're rather dumb.
Would
They're
you
really-
ever change anything that you did just because a reviewer made some comment?
No. You change, though, all the time, but not because of them.
You just grow.
But you do read them.
Oh, sure. I love it when they're nice. And when they're not nice, they're just dumb, obviously. They don't know.
Do you think the character of Hal is developed as much as it could be in the play?
Well, that's hard. I'm 33 and he's 20, man, and that's not the way it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to be the same age. So I think that if I was younger or was able to find a lot younger colors, it would be developed as far as it, as a 20-year-old develops it. you can't have expectations. He's not Richard Burton, you know, he's not 30, he's 20 years old, and that's the way he plays it. I think it's terrific for 20 years old. I mean, why should he do things on the battlefield that somebody 25 would do? Or why should he act the way Dan Sullivan wants him to act, or anybody? He's 20 years old, that's how he operates at 20. It's a wonderful performance. If he does it again in 5 years, it'll be much different, you know, because he'll have 5 years more weight on him. I think it's terrific.
When you're playing the mistress of the inn, do you see it as just a browdy broad that's running the thing, a very simple person, or do you see it as a very proud lady who is caught up in Falstaff, so she kind of loses herself that way?
Yeah, she's totally wrapped up in Falstaff, the way I play it, and she's totally, he is her life, and I find that when playing it, that if Victor is a little off, that there's, you know, that I have nothing. I mean, because that's the way I'm playing it, that's the way I was asked to play it, and I'm really enjoying playing it that way. It's a sort of giving thing, you know, and yes, he is her life. She does. I think if Falstaff ever moved out of the inn, her life would be very dull. Have you seen her husband?
If he moved out of the play, it would be very dull. I just like to say, just before we go on, is that it's an incredibly difficult role to play Falstaff, and Victor is not a guy who uses any padding. I mean, he's a large guy, and he has a lot of aches and pains and a lot of bad problems with his knees and his back.
He's very
sick. The reason he probably didn't show up is he's probably getting a heat treatment or something.
His aches and pains, I found out that he's flat on his back. He's very ill, and so he's under doctor's medication. And apparently he couldn't show today, and I'd like to apologize on his behalf. So,
Yeah.
sorry
Yeah.
about that.
He really takes a beating, man. He groans when he picks me up every night.
Yeah.
It's one of the great moments for me in the play.
We'll take one more question. There's a question over there somewhere.
I always thought that for an actor to play a role successfully, you have to find some part of yourself in each character. I wondered if either of you had found something of your own individual in Mistress Quickly or in Hotspur.
Well, I took, yes, it came full circle, and I, from the way I was originally playing, stretching and reaching until it's something that's very close to me, very close to the soft side of me, the woman side of me.
Yeah, I just play me. I mean, I don't really, in most things I do, I don't really put in a lot of effort on trying to figure out who he is. I put in a lot of effort trying to figure out how he can become me, you know, so, I mean, a lot of that act is my act, you know. I don't try to get into character like what he does. It's what I do that's similar to him, is what I play, you know. So a lot of it's me, like most of it.
Thank you all for coming. There are some brochures here on the stage if you want to know more about the play. Good luck on your finals.
Thank you.